jump that we're seeing happened in 1 month. There was a 20% jump, almost 20, it's a 19% jump in, and this is an and actually, I'm sorry. 21% of Americans have read an ebook, but this is a statistic I wanted to get to, was that ownership of tablets and e-readers doubled in 1 month. These are lots of Christmas and Hanukkah presents, I guess, in 1 month. The other thing that they revealed in the survey that the Pew Internet Research did was 29% of adults own at least one of these devices. And I can see it in this room. I was watching everybody earlier, and it was like, everybody's on their device. 42% of readers of eBooks said they are reading more. So where's our content? Is it out there for them? Was the question I had. The other scary statistic was 62% of those surveyed, and these are adults 18 years and older. This was a survey that they did in December, do not know that libraries have this content or they can lend this ebook content. So we have an awareness issue. So the first question was, what is working for us? The very first thing that I could say that's working for us is delivering to our users what they want when they want it. And that sounds kind of trite, but this is how we're doing it. When someone submits an interlibrary loan, we do not process this as an interlibrary loan. We buy it. And we buy E first. If they hate it, we'll then buy print. We don't ask them. You may sound, well, that's not a good use of your money. The E is available now for everyone, so we're not taking the time to ask. If you ask me how many times did it happen where a faculty member, graduate student, undergraduate said the E doesn't work, and I'm not making this up, 6 times in 18 months that we had to go buy the print. I mentioned we have patron-driven acquisitions. We use EBL. We spend $200,000 a year on our patron-driven acquisitions. It's not perfect because we know that not all of the publishers are comfortable with PDA at this point. So EBL has a percentage of what is available to within the publication universe of eBooks. We do 3 short-term loans, and then we do the 4th is an automatic purchase. We have open requests that are on our webpage. If you see something you don't find, we will buy it for you. And then we have something called eBooks in the Classroom. This is one of I'm really involved in textbook affordability at the university. So if they have an ebook that they can use, that they can adopt as a textbook, we will buy it for them in the class. We have spent a drop in the bucket, $5,000 on titles. We have saved the student $41,000. So this is where library administration struggled with eBooks in our library. It was that whole this is what libraries do. We build collections. Now we don't see these collections. We can put them on a list. So they had to do this whole rethinking about reconciling access over physical ownership. And I was like, when I was talking to the person to whom I report, I said, so what are the problems you see with eBooks? And he said, the sucking sound. And I looked at him and I thought, what are you talking about? And he said, the sucking sound is the sound you hear when the money is going down the funnel. And that was their fear, that we were going to burn through all of our money with eBooks, which we haven't. The other big concern from library administration was how and when to re-engineer the workforce. That sounds kind of like we're Martians for re-engineering, but it really is it was a year-long project where we took those staff members and librarians whose whole life has been print and said, you're not doing this anymore. You're going to be working with electronic content. 25% of their assignment for 1 year was, we want you to learn about technology. We had staff members who didn't know how to send an email because when they were cataloging, they didn't have to send an email. They didn't know how to work in Excel. They didn't know how an eBook worked or why we would have eBooks. So it took a full year of seminars, of training to get these individuals up to speed. I would like to say that it was 100% successful. Not necessarily. We still have some people who just want to go back. They mourn the days. You know, we get emotional about books. There's an emotion attached to books. We were never emotional about indexing and abstracting services. You didn't take psych abstracts home with you. We weren't emotional about even reference books, but we do get emotional about books. When some people say to me, you don't like books, my collection can rival your, I have lots of books. I love books, but we are at a different time. Finally, the question was then asked, what's next for all of us in this room, all the librarians that are out there that are in the water, on their boards, trying to figure out what's coming. We think, and this was the 7 of us, think that there's going to be lots less physical content, and it's going to happen more quickly than we thought, and that's been our experience. I talked a little bit about mobile pairing. Anybody know what mobile pairing is other than, no, I do, because at ALA I heard this word. It's pretty cool. An example is American Mathematical Society, where if you are on the network and they know you are USF, you can pair your mobile device to AMS. They recognize you so that when you're in a conference and it's time limited, they do it for 90 days, there's no login. They know who you are, and you can get to the American Mathematical Association content. It's going to make our lives easier for mobile devices, but it's just a handful of vendors at this point. We all know, everybody's heard about RDA, that RDA is now we're going to be moving away from that physical object to then using a description based on digital. And where this is early on, our catalogs, our records are going to change, and we're going to be part of the semantic web where you can use natural language to ask the question, and you'll get good results. This is again the future.
Throughout the presentation, I'm going to try to highlight one central message, and that central message is that whether you're talking about e-journals, e-books, or any other type of resource, libraries need to be carefully studying use data to assess their functionalities of technology, and there are some great opportunities available for libraries to enhance these assessments through collaboration. So I don't think I would be making a controversial or shocking statement if I begin my presentation by noting that libraries are navigating through a period of transformative change. Today's increasingly vast and sophisticated networks of digital technologies have placed libraries in a complex and competitive economy of information access. So success in this economy requires libraries to be tools that are dynamic and that do not become ossified in established functionalities that no longer correspond to user needs. I believe that libraries must situate themselves as user-defined tools that can and should evolve in accordance in time with their users' needs. In other words, the library must reject functionalities that are being outmoded by users' information needs, and they must adopt new functionalities that are in step with how user communities are actually using the library. So if we accept the premise that of the library as a user-constructed tool, one question that arises is, how do you evaluate how well the library is actually functioning as a tool? In other words, how do you measure the return on investment of the library? So, as all of you are aware, return on investment is an issue of crucial importance for libraries today. This is a fact reflected in the recent white paper that Springer and Publisher Communication Group released, Scholarly eBooks, Understanding the Return on Investment for Libraries. So as the title suggests, this paper specifically considers the challenge of accurately assessing return on investment of libraries' emerging ebook collections. And in doing so, the report particularly highlights that the clearest path forward seems to indicate the importance of use data for evaluating e-resource collections. So to understand the power and potential of use data for ebooks and for other e-resources, it's useful to consider this data in the context of use data for print resources. In conclusion, what can we learn from these projects to compare use data across institutions, and how can we extend those insights, or can we extend those insights into the realm of ebooks? First and foremost, I think that the projects I've discussed foreground some of the opportunities out there for libraries to collaborate to gain a better understanding of return on investment for their e-resource collections. This understanding could enable libraries to better evaluate these collections and make better decisions on how to develop the collections in the future. So for example, if a library has a high cost per use for a particular resource in the context of cost per use for other libraries, that might be assigned to that particular library that it needs to either try to negotiate a better subscription price for that resource, or it might be assigned that the library should perhaps consider canceling that subscription. This usefulness of the projects for ongoing subscriptions raises an important question when considered in the context of ebooks. Quite often, library ebook acquisitions are one-time purchases, not ongoing commitments. Given this fact, one might ask, so why should libraries even look at use data for their ebook purchases? After all, once a library has purchased an ebook, it can't unpurchase that ebook. So what is the actionable intelligence that UStats will provide for ebooks? And would there ever be any reason to make this sort of cross-institutional analyses of ebook use that I talked a little bit about in terms of e-journal use? Well, I think there are a number of reasons why collecting and analyzing use data for ebooks is really important. First of all, it's crucial that we aim to understand and document the return on investment of our library ebook collections. And this is a fact discussed earlier in the context of that recently published white paper from Springer. One important component of understanding return on investment is understanding the relative values of differing models that libraries are using for their acquisition of ebook collections. We're still in a very exploratory and transitory time when it comes to ebook acquisitions, and I think it's really important that we study use data to try to understand which acquisition models are working best and which ones are such that perhaps they're not very successful and things that we should be evaluating, perhaps scaling back or discontinuing particular models. So likewise, I think we need to understand which types of ebooks are being used most heavily and the nature of the use that is occurring for those ebooks. For example, are there particular subject areas that are receiving high ebook use and other areas that are receiving low ebook use? Likewise, are there particular types of ebooks that are getting used more heavily than others, perhaps scholarly monographs or reference materials, or maybe it's popular reading that's getting more highly used. So I think it's, again, really important that we study use data for eBooks to get a sense of what's working well, what's not working well, so that we can develop the library's ebook collection in a way that's really going to accommodate how our patrons are wanting to use those ebook collections in order to meet their needs.
One of the biggest changes at my library was that we never would have purchased a collection of books before. I never would have gone out and bought 5,000 print books in one day. And that's something that companies like Springer make really easy to do. And it's kind of a matter of looking at the cost and looking at the content and what do you think would be used. And that's something totally different. Basically, for the regular collection, we still purchase titles to support the curriculum, but it's the decision, like she mentioned about which vendor do I buy it from? Do I want it for single user? Is it available for multiple users? What format's going to work the best? If something's available from 2 different vendors, which one should I buy it from? And so it's really those individual titles that I think are causing me the most problems right now. And I think I'll try something like your approach of an actual collection development policy that says we'll try this and this and this so that we can really evaluate it better.
We have recently undergone a major kind of reorganization, and previously we had a very definite split between the acquisition of electronic books and the acquisition of print books, and that previously at Furman I held the position of electronic resources and serials librarian, and my department was responsible for acquiring everything that was electronic, and that included electronic books, whereas our collection development / acquisitions department was responsible for collecting print monographs. And that meant that I was having a lot of conversations with our collection development librarian going, I don't know, do you want to buy it or do you want me to buy it? So, and it got confusing. We had duplication where, I bought the Duke Library eBook Scholarly Collection, the Duke University Press eBook Scholarly Collection, and she bought everything that Duke University Press published in print, and we bought both of those formats that year.
With reference to the question about separate funds for eBooks at ECU, we do have a separate fund for like ebook readers that we use for acquiring Nooks and Kindles and those sorts of things. But beyond that, no, we really haven't developed specific funds for our ebook collections. I'll go back to a point that Monica made in her presentation about ebook usage. I think it would be great if we could get more information about the context of use and the nature of use. How long is a user accessing a particular ebook? Are they accessing the entire ebook, or are they accessing just one particular chapter? Are they making notes? What's their engagement with the content? I think that's what we're wanting to get a better sense of in evaluating return on investment for our ebook collections.
For our business model, we really go for the books that have no DRM. I mean, if I can buy, Springer, of course, but there's also others out there, that have said, we don't have any DRM, buy our books. And I can definitely tell you that's, when somebody says that to me, I listen, and I'm like, oh, that's good, because it makes it a lot easier on the user. We don't have to explain, you can't print this out. You can't do but 20 pages. Users don't care. They just want to use it and get it and go. They don't want to listen to why they can't, like Monica said earlier, they can't get to their book, those kind of things. They don't want to hear that. So we're trying to stay away from the publishers that, have things in vendors, at the, like the YBP, or like eBrary or stuff like that. If we can, we buy it from, the publisher these days.
Does it, Judy, do you have any comments?
Well, for me, because we're so small, I find all those models especially challenging. We do buy pretty much all of them because it's about what the faculty member wants. And we have subject specialists. We work very closely with the faculty, and they'll tell us, these are the 2. I just had one recently told me, these are 2 ebooks I'd like for fall semester. And, so then I go out and I see, okay, where can I buy these from? And they're not sold by any of the people I'm currently dealing with. So then it's okay. Am I going to go add another company at this point and then, evaluating all of it? Or am I just going to tell him, no, I'm sorry, at this time it's not available in ebook format? But it does make it really challenging. I would prefer whenever, particularly there's a publisher involved, that they follow what we call the Springer model. And when I go out and I talk to faculty, because they want to know, when we have ebooks, how am I going to be able to use this? Can I put it in my course management system? Can I just use the parts I want? Will all of the students in my class be able to use it at the same time? And so whenever we go out, we meet with them, we show them the Springer books first, and then we say, if you can find some content in here that will be appropriate for the level of your students, start with this. And we've had a lot of success with that in some classes, like our nursing informatics class. They liked the Springer book. That was already the book they wanted to use, so I didn't have to convince them. And so we were able to just know very comfortably that we could put it there. But my problem is, not only do I have to figure out where to get an ebook from, but what can I tell the faculty member they can do with it once we have it? Because nobody wants students to have to individually authenticate every time they use a book and then to get turned away because somebody else is using it then. So it's very complicated. And then the whole thing with downloading, if one student downloads a book, does that mean nobody else can use it for 7 days? So there's a lot of challenges.
Yeah, and I was actually going to make a point very much similar to what Chris was saying. I mean, as I was thinking about this question of, in the age of full text indexing, whether metadata has a role, part of me feels like, yeah, it has a more important role than ever, because of the very fact Chris was raising, that on page 73 they might talk about the fat hamster. And so having subject terms and rich metadata in order to better get results that are going to be relevant is all the more important. But in order to take advantage of those functionalities, like Chris said, you really need to educate the patron to use the discovery tools in a way that's going to weed out that full text discoverability. So like for the discovery service that East Carolina University uses is Summon, and Summon does do full text indexing of a significant portion of actually what's in our print collection through the HathiTrust database. And when that initially happened, I was really excited about it, because I thought, wow, this is really going to unlock discoverability of our print collection. But that really hasn't panned out. And in fact, it, I think, quite often confuses patrons when they get a result that seems quite irrelevant to the search term that they're doing, simply because on some random page buried within one of our print books is the search term they're looking for. So I guess, yeah, I do think metadata is more important, but metadata doesn't solve the entire puzzle.
Okay, the challenge. That's easier. I think our biggest challenge is to just make sure people, like they don't, like we were talking about earlier, the student doesn't know if it's a no DR, printing and did things like that. So our biggest challenge is trying to educate them. And, I'm getting phone calls. So why can't I get to this ebook? Well, somebody else is using it. It's those kind of issues. So what we've tried to do is, like Monica said, we set up a LibGuide for ebooks, and we also put a link in the catalog to that LibGuide. So we have Cersei Dynex, so I don't know if you can do this with others, but if it's an ebook and it's marked as an ebook, it has this little link on the side that says "Help with eBooks," and which takes you to that LibGuide, which is kind of cool, because then you have a list of this, this you can do in EBSCO, this is you can do in EBL, this is what you can do in Springer. You can do everything, but and other big ebook packages we have. So we can say you can print a chapter, you can print a PDF, you can know that there's one concurrent user. All that kind of information is right there. So that was a lot of work when we were trying to pull all that together. And of course now we have it up, we have to update it because we keep buying collections. So, we have to remember we bought the collection, now we have to update it. So I think just getting that information out is a challenge. And, we've actually had workshops for the staff. We held 3 of them on eBooks, for especially like circulation. the staff. They are get bombarded by questions, and it was good for them to know, hey, this is the the LibGuide is there for you if you forget, and here's so educating our staff so they could educate the users is very important, and that's what was our challenge.
Springer does have very bare bone MARC records available, but we're not in the business of creating MARC records, so we essentially outsource that to OCLC. This came up a lot. Simultaneous users, check-in, check-out policies. Again, Springer doesn't have any of that. Unlimited simultaneous users. There's no check-in, check-out policy. If you have a stadium-seated class with 2,000 students in it and a professor wanted them to access a book chapter or book article, all of them can go online at the same time and get access to this content. There's no restrictions. In our case, DRM is not too much of a concern. We also have IP authentication. Someone talked about this also. It's good. Throughout this summit, we talked about all of these points. People getting frustrated, having to set up a username to get access. As long as you're within a certain IP range that the university or college provides to us, your users will get access to it. They won't even notice. It'll be seamless to them. They'll be taken to the PDF. They'll be able to download it, and they won't even know that in some cases they don't even know that the library purchased it for them. They just think it's free on the internet. That's good and bad, right? All right, because we have no DRM PDFs, there's no restrictions as far as saving it. You can download it, save it. We've heard of professors getting requests from their old colleagues from other schools and them emailing it to it. That's scholarly sharing. That's fine with us. The only restriction we really have in the license is that you're not reselling the content. So otherwise, everything's all good. And finally, we touched upon this, or Monica actually mentioned this earlier. We have a user-centric feature. It's called My Copy. So if a school purchases an eBook electronically, and this would definitely come in handy, say if it's a textbook and a student wanted a cover-to-cover binded version. So it's a grayscale interior, color cover, soft cover, and it can be any size. It could be an 8.5 by 11 book, 1,000 pages, and they'll get it for $24.95 shipped to their door. That includes shipping. So. And we use Lightning Source, so they're in Nashville, Tennessee. Any school in the Southeast gets it very, very quickly. I've ordered these books in New York and gotten them within a week. Any school that's this close to Tennessee will get them, probably within 3 days. That's fairly good. But it beats printing out a whole book at the library. You're able to highlight this thing, do whatever you want with it. Some professors like it. They just like to put their books that they publish on their shelves, so they can do that. You tell them they can get a POD version for $25. That's usually good enough for them. So again, there's no liability to the library. We call it user-centric because users have to pay for it. They enter their credit card information at the point of purchase. You guys already did your job collecting it electronically for them. Obviously they don't know how much you paid, which it's probably more than $24.95 for the whole package, but they can get a bound version of this for $24.95.